Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Pride of All Europe podcast brought to you by All for United. I'm joined by, it's a very small panel today, but I promise you we make up for it in knowledge and experience, that's for sure. So I'm joined by Alan. How are you doing today, mate?
Hiya, Jay. Okay. You all right?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. So it's the big day, isn't it? You know, the clash of the Titans, the historic battle. I think the Battle of Britain resumed is what they were saying today. It's obviously England versus Germany today, possibly England's biggest Euros game since we lost to Germany on penalties in '96, I'd say. So, you know, just to get the ball rolling, Alan, how excited are you for today's game?
Yeah, well, I think there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, Jay, over this last week or two since the tournament started about routes to the final and who will play this and which team will be getting and what is the best route and things like that. So we've managed to go and win our group, which is is fantastic, which has obviously set us up with a last 16 clash against the old enemy, the German lads. So yeah, so really excited. After observing a really, really good day of football yesterday, watching a couple of cracking ties, I think it's whet the appetite for all the England supporters tonight. And yeah, it's just a case now, I think, of bringing it on and seeing what we can do. And if we can navigate this, if we can get past Germany, you never know. The route to the final is kind of, it's worked out all right. It could have been a lot worse. There's a few cracking ties on the other side of the draw where all the big hitters are kind of taking care of each other. So if we can get past the German lads tonight, and you'd be fancying yourselves against Sweden or Ukraine in the quarters, which again would lead to sort of another favourable draw if we could bypass that and get to the semis. Or don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and make the mistake of looking too far into the future. But the draw's panned well for England. It's worked out quite nicely. And what a tie. A massive game tonight. Absolutely millions tuning into this. And, let's hope we can do the business and take care of Germany.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll start pre-match because there's been a lot of media coverage about lineups and how this game might be approached. There's rumours that we're going to revert back to a back five or a back three to disrupt the wing backs for Germany that have been so effective. Obviously, you got Kimmich one side and Robin Gosens the other, who have been electric so far. The reason that they got through that group of death in second place like they did. So, is that the way you think England need to go? Or, because in my mind, obviously we need to, defend against their threats. But do you think changing our shape to accommodate them is a sign of weakness, or do you think it's smart management by Southgate?
I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you've got to be almost be cautious, but with a bit of courage to play as well. And I know, Southgate over the last sort of few games in the groups has kind of come under a bit of criticism by, not really picking creative, explosive lineups. He's kind of gone a little bit safe, but it's all well and good picking safe sides and sort of having a kind of a back three or a block of five, or like you say, try to nullify Germany's wing backs. But you've got to have areas of the pitch and pockets of the pitch where you can allow players to go and express themselves as well. So we'll just have to see what happens, see what he does, whether he'll go with kind of a three centre half, sort of like Kyle Walker, Maguire and Stones, and then maybe looking at James and Shaw on the left hand side, right hand side. Probably Declan Rice, I would have thought, will probably go in there maybe alongside Calvin Phillips as kind of a sort of a sitting midfield partnership, which will leave then Sterling, Harry Kane, possibly, well, definitely shoe in for him. He'll be starting, and then the young Saka will probably be up there as well, just to sort of cement his place, because he's only a young kid, isn't he? Like no fear, it's come kind of like a bit of an explosive entry into the tournament, and he seems to be sort of one of these players at the moment who's kind of like he doesn't have any fear. So again, somebody who might be able to unlock Germany's back four and create some stuff. So So yeah, you're right, Jay. It's probably a cautious approach, but with a little bit of attacking influence when we can kind of get that. So I'm sure, Gareth Southgate, the England lads, performance analysis is like massive in the modern game. So they'll have had a close look at Germany's players, the lineups, where typical threats come from, hot spots and stuff like that. So I'm sure Southgate will have this kind of well rehearsed, well done his homework, and will pick a side to hopefully do the business.
Yeah, certainly hope so. Certainly hope so. It's obviously the introduction of Bukayo Saka at left wing back. It's looking like, I think they're going with a front two of Sterling and Kane. Obviously, a big call to put him ahead of Luke Shaw, isn't it? Because I think Luke Shaw has been our best left back at the tournament. He's already our highest chance creator, despite I think he's only played 2 games. So he's definitely influential from that left hand side, and he's been the best left back in the Premier League. So he's probably earned his stripes. But obviously, then you've got the plaudits that surrounded Bukayo Saka, rightfully so as well, because of his performance against the Czech Republic, his drive and his ambition to just get the ball forward, which a lot of England players seem to be missing at the minute. What are your thoughts on that? Who would you go for at that left wing back spot if you had to pick between the two?
Yeah, it's a good question. You're looking at the situation like can we kind of like both be accommodated somewhere? Like sort of one in front of the other, or looking at sort of some of the if you've got a couple of players in midfield who will kind of like just sit and just protect the back three of Walker, if he goes with this, of course, of Walker, Maguire, Stones. It's kind of like he might try and accommodate, because we've got to have attacking threat from somewhere, haven't we? Like Raheem Sterling's kind of come under a bit of criticism, been in and out of form. Some people have been saying that he's been kind of fortunate to get his opportunity, but again, in top football, in high level football, Southgate knows the players better than I do, and he knows what levels they're training at, and he knows kind of like to give people a bit of trust and a little bit of confidence. So if he goes with them, that's kind of fine. So he might try and accommodate a couple of players there, Jay. Just to try and get that little bit of creative and attacking options, and because I think that's a dangerous game to play, innit? You can't pick a side that's too methodical and that's just going to sit and keep the ball and look for exploitation in certain areas. You're going to have to pick a couple of players in there that can create and unlock the German lads and their sort of the way they're going to set up. So yeah, it should be an interesting formation that he picks. But there's a lot of the positives that we have as well. Is like the squad looks really, really strong in depth, and there's a few good options to come off the bench if needed. Like Jadon Sancho's had a look in. I think he had 7 minutes, something like that. Phil Foden, he's been fantastic. Had a fantastic season with Man City, so he's always a live threat and a danger. Marcus Rashford, I think he's just been an absolute warrior at the moment. I think he's desperate for a rest. We keep reading in the media, don't we, about he's carrying a shoulder injury and he needs attention on that. But because of the type of player he is and the resilience and the mental strength that he has, he'll want to sort of keep going. So there's always that option as well. So yeah, there's plenty of options for Gareth Southgate if he wants to tweak stuff and change stuff about. But yeah, it's almost like I feel it's kind of like a cautious but when needed a creative approach tonight. That's the way I can sort of see this panning out. Cautious and steady and methodical and a little bit patient early on. But as they get into the sort of the realms of the game, trying to get like more attacking threat and create more stuff up there, because Kane's got to do something sooner or later. Harry Kane he's come under a bit of criticism. He's not really done much. Whether that's the transfer speculation that's kind of come out in the media over this last sort of week or two, is affected his game quite possibly. But he could explode now. Harry Kane could come right into this. He needs something to trigger him and get him going. So you never know. It might be time for him to step up. And like I say, it's a massive clash, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, if England can bypass this and get past it, it opens up. The confidence will be absolutely huge going into the quarterfinals. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, Jay, and see how it pans out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've raised a good point there with Harry Kane. Obviously, he's had a disappointing tournament in general, but I think it's fair to
give him a bit of credit for the fact that there's not been many chances come his way. He's not a player that can do it all by himself. He does need players to create the chances for him. And we've just not really been doing that, have we? So do you think we're sort of limiting him further by playing this defensive setup that it looks like we're going to go with? Because to accommodate for an extra defender, you're going to have to take one of those attacking players out, aren't you? So do you think that'll hinder Kane further? Or do you think the fact that we're likely going to be playing on the back foot and he might have a bit more space up there when we do get up there, do you think, do you think it's going to be a hindrance or a positive for Harry Kane this game?
It's a great question. We know, James, only that centre forwards thrive on opportunities, coming from crosses or creative play around the box. There's not been a lot created over the last 3 group games that we've played, bit parts that he's not really been able to get on the end of much, hasn't he? He's hardly done much. I think his ratio has been really poor, and in relation to shots and things like that, it's been really low. So yeah, it's a great point. There's no point putting top players inside if you're not getting service to them. That just doesn't. It defeats the object. So yeah, It's a great question. You're gonna have to think about how can we get the ball to Kane to exploit the quality that he has. Who's going to be getting down the line and getting crosses in for him to give him an opportunity to get on the under stuff. So you've got to look around that. You've got to base players around Harry Kane. But I think the one thing, like any other player, and certainly in a centre forward position, is you need that backing, don't you? And that almost like that love and that trust off your manager. And I think it's almost a case of like Southgate saying to don't worry, keep going at it. But almost saying that we need more out of you as well. He's one of the senior players in the England side, and we need to see more. We need to see more of Harry Kane, and hopefully, as this tournament unfolds, if he can do the business tonight and get himself off and running again, he might sort of grow into the tournament. But it's that cutthroat situation, isn't it? It's no point talking about quarters and semis. We've got to get over this last 16 tie, and that that's not a gimmick. It's not an easy thing to do. So we've got to go out all guns blazing tonight, and there's there's no second chances here, is there? If we flop tonight, or we perform poorly, or we have another lackluster, lethargic performance, we're going to get punished. Because some of the German lads are decent. They've got some good players in their squad that can cause problems. So yeah, I think it's a really nice, evenly matched game tonight. I'm really looking forward to this, and I've got a bit of confidence going in that we can do something, but not overly confident. I always try to be optimistic, but have that realism as well. That it's just whatever happens on the night, isn't it? Football and or whatever happens in the afternoon. It's a tea time kickoff, isn't it? 5 o'clock. So yeah, we'll see if we can get rid of the Germans, get them knocked out of the tournament.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of optimism, especially when it comes to England, there's only one man for the job. I'll bring in Neil. Neil, how are you doing, mate?
I'm all right. Optimistic.
Good. Absolutely. You can only be optimistic going into these games. Obviously, a clash with the old enemy. How are you feeling, mate?
Well, I think Alan surmised the situation up very well, actually. The closer it gets, I think it gets more even. But you can clearly see a path to the final. And I'm going to be a bit bold here. I reckon it might be Italy and England in the final eventually. But I think they will put us through the ringer tonight. And I wouldn't be surprised if it went to extra time. Because it's just what we do, isn't it? I mean, Alan and I reckon, are not far off the same age. Sorry if I've insulted you there, Alan. So I can remember 90, I can remember 96. They just put us through the ringer against the Germans. Every time we played the Germans, the Bloemfontein, the Lampard thing, we've always been through the ringer somehow. And I don't think tonight's going to be any different. I just hope it's. Hope we come out of our shells a bit like Alan was saying, and let's play some good football. I think if we play some good football, I think we'll be good enough to beat the Germans.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to ask you this. I've already spoke to Alan about it, but there's rumours that we're going to set up with a back three, a back five, if you will, to accommodate for Germany's wing backs and how well they've been playing in this tournament. What do you think about that? Do you think that, you know, setting up to accommodate their team is a sign of weakness, and we should be going out to attack them and let them worry about us? Or do you think it's smart from Southgate to defend against what Germany are so good at?
I don't know really. It depends. I mean, if he does match up, which, you know, I mean, unfortunately, the only build up we get to the games at the moment is Sky Sports, and they seem to get more wrong than they get right. If it depends on the personnel he puts in, if we are going to match up, you know, could he play Shaw as the left-sided centre back? I think he'd be a better option than if he was going to play Mings. And then he played Shaw alongside Maguire and Stones, and you got Walker down one side, or Reece James, and then you got Chilwell. That would be if he was going to go through the back, I'd be quite comfortable with Shaw playing it as one of the three centre halves. He's done it at United very successfully, and he's looked, as usual, he's carried his Man United form into. He seems to have carried his United form into this England team. Never mind the Mourinho turn undermined him on TalkSquawk. It just depends on the personnel, really. I think that's the issue with me. I haven't got an issue matching up because a lot of managers have done it over the years, but it depends on who he puts around Kane, and I think Alan was just touching on that. It is important what we do at the top of the pitch. I'd like to see Grealish start somehow, but I don't think he's going to start, is it?
No, it's not looking likely. It's not looking likely at all, given the reports. But you mentioned Shaw there. We were talking about it earlier as well, so it'd be good to get your thoughts on it. There's rumours that Bukayo Saka is going to come in at that left wing back spot. Obviously, I think you mentioned that you wanted to see Chilwell there, maybe. But you know, we obviously had a brilliant game against the Czechs. It's something that not many England players have done so far. Is just take the game to players and drive the ball forward, and that's what Saka did. So, do you think that has warranted a spot in the England team, even with this sort of change setup?
Yeah, I mean, Chilwell, because he's slightly more defensive minded than Saka, and maybe that's me being classically overcautious, which, you know, the closer it gets to the game, we're all going to probably get slightly more cautious than, you know, a week ago I'd have been gung-ho and said we're going to absolutely destroy the Germans. The exciting side of it is let's go for it and play Saka, because he was terrific. He's been terrific, and that's one of the reasons I'd like to play Grealish, because they do go past players. They will take the ball on and get into the dangerous areas. I wouldn't have an issue with it with Saka or Chilwell, to be honest.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we've spoke about. Well, actually, one last thing I wanted to talk to you both about is obviously with this five at the back, it's five defenders. Whether you want to class the wing backs as whatever you want to class it as, I think on paper it is five defenders, and then by the looks of it, we're going to have two holding midfielders in front of them in Rice and Phillips. And now, if we look at this from a United point of view, obviously United deployed this same strategy against Leipzig in the Champions League and ended up getting absolutely battered. So, is there a worry that we're perhaps going a little bit too defensive? Because with those two holding midfielders, it's effectively seven at the back, isn't it? I'll come to you first, Alan. Is that a bit of a worry for you?
Yeah, possibly. You're right, Jay. It doesn't set the right precedence, does it? Like looking at sort of a defensive and methodical side. You don't keep mentioning that word there, but what we don't want to do here is kind of like create pandemonium for ourselves, and you know, like. Just as us talking about the German lads and having the performance analysis lads having a look at how they set up and how they play and where the dangers come from, you know, it'll be vice versa. They'll be looking at how England potentially going to set up and where they can exploit us. So we don't want to be, you know, too defensive. And I think like anything else, I'm a great believer in trying to start well as well. You know, if we can get a foothold in the game quite early. You know, going back to our experiences, Jay, with Man United over this last season, it's been reversal, hasn't it? Where it's been a slow start and then having to get back into the game after that. But I'm a great fan of trying to get off to a decent start and and trying to get a foothold in the game and get some play going and just to give everybody a boost and get them some confidence going, because I'm sure the nerves are going to be jangling tonight. And all listening to Gary Neville last night saying that this is the biggest game that a lot of players, England lads, have faced so far in their careers. So I'm sure that the anxiety will be high. So, to get a good touch early on, or to get a good header in, or a good pass in, or win a good tackle, it sets you up nicely for the game. If you have a bad start, the dangers of that psychologically is you kind of retract into yourself and you go missing a little bit and you think, oh, it's not going to be my night tonight. So I think it's important as a unit, as an 11, and however Southgate decides to start this formation tonight, that we get going early doors and get into this game and almost go for it. There's nothing to lose, is there, tonight? We've got to be at it, because if we're not at it, we'll be joining some of the other big sides and unfortunately departing the tournament early.
Yeah, definitely. Well, just staying with those midfielders then, obviously Rice and Phillips have been the go-to so far, Neil, but they're both very defensively sound. I don't see a lot of them really going forward though. So do you think there's a shout with the five at the back to bring in someone like Jude Bellingham, who has that defensive stability but also offers a lot of creativity going forward as well?
I do, but when you talk about the three midfielder, now this is going to shock a hell of a lot of people. I read the Sunday Times. Amazingly, I can read. And Rooney wrote an article in there this week where he'd gone with three midfield of Henderson, Rice, Phillips, and then his front three, Kane obviously down the middle, and then either side of Kane, you've got Rashford and Sterling, because his theory was sheer pace would frighten the life out of that German defence, and it's tough to argue with that. And the more I think about it, that's actually not a bad lineup. I know it's hugely defensive in terms of we lock the back door and leave it to those three to one and score a goal. And it's probably Phillips who'd be the one who'd be trying to link up, with the front three. But the argument for Jude Bellingham is quite. It seems to be standing out now that if he's good enough, let's put him in. He has looked really, really top class player, and he looks like he could handle this. So why not put him in?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't help but agree. I think if we're going to give him a game, I think now's probably the time, especially with that defensive stability behind him. But go on, sorry.
I have got a World War II reference following on from Alan's. I think it's very important that we create a beachhead quite quickly in the game.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, definitely. But we need to talk about, obviously, the Germany team as well. It's without doubt one of the best teams in the tournament. But like a lot of the big guns so far in the tournament, they've not been blowing sides away. Obviously, they lost to France, I think deservedly so as well. I thought France were the better team on the day. I think they demolished Portugal, but that's because of, like we said, the wing-backs that they deployed. Portugal just weren't set up to defend against them at all. So that's what cost them the game. And then Hungary, they sort of laboured to a 2-2 draw. So, Alan, is this probably the best time recently to face the Germans, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. It's like any other side. I think some different countries, like a lot of clubs, they go through transitional stages, don't they, in transitional periods. And I don't think it's the strongest German team that there's been, certainly over this last 25, 30 years. But as you say, Jay, they have got, there's always decent players and got threats in there. Toni Kroos, Gundogan, Muller, Timo Werner, but he's been a bit in and out, hasn't he? Sort of been brought on as a kind of an effects player, or if you needed a goal, etc. And like you say, they've hardly been setting the group stage on fire, did they? I mean, they coughed and spluttered a little bit. It had to go to a kind of a late goal that they scored against the Hungarians to try and get them over the line and get them moving into the last 16. So, but it's knockout football now, isn't it? So anything can happen. I know Joachim Low said in the media that expect a different German side tonight. So we've nearly learned a harsh lesson from the group stage. So You know, he's kind of promised and said, you know, you'll see a different outfit tonight, a different mentality, a different enthusiasm, a different motivation. So yeah, it should be. It's like millions of others. I'm really looking forward to it. This should be a really intriguing contest tonight. I know it's whetted the appetite over the last 24 hours since the brilliant games that we saw yesterday. But I'm sure a lot of England fans will just take a rubbish performance out with a 1-0 win or something like that just to get us into the quarterfinals. From an exciting perspective, everybody's hoping there's going to be like 2 or 3-all draw tonight and England win on penalties. But I'm sure everybody will take a 1-0 scrappy goal off somebody's knee or something, just to get rid of them and get us moving forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Long may it continue, the scrappy 1-0 wins. If we can get, 3 more scrappy 1-0 wins, I think we've won the tournament. So bring it on. But Neil, obviously, Germany, goes without saying, are a quality team. Is there anyone in specific in that team that you think can really punish England tonight? And on the flip side of that, is there anyone in that Germany team that England really need to be targeting as well?
I think Kimmich for Germany at the wing back, and I get the feeling that's why we're sort of matching them up. Because Kimmich does look top drawer to me. He looks a right good player. Well, it's not only to me; it's to probably hundreds of thousands of people. He's a great player, and that's probably a bit of my thinking is to play Chilwell as a wing back. He's going to be better up against Kimmich because he seems to die. Obviously, Kroos. I mean, I said last week, I think if you can stop Kroos, I think you can stop the Germans, because then you can stop the supply lines into the players like Kimmich. But Kimmich is the one that you just see in him that there's a great game somewhere, and he could explode. The worry is he could explode tonight and cause us a lot of trouble. I think if I was the Germans, it's the pace in our team, I think, is a big worry for them, because if we can get at that defence, I really, really do fancy. If we can get enough of the ball and get it into the right places, I think the pace in the England team could be a real, real danger for the Germans.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we've seen already, Mats Hummels has struggled a lot in all of the games so far, really, with dealing with pace. Obviously, famously with Mbappe, but I think anyone would fail to deal with him. But yeah, definitely, I think him and Ginter at the back are both struggling in terms of dealing with players. So that's definitely a route to go down. But before we move on to yesterday's games, I'll ask for you both for a prediction for today. I'll come to you first, Alan. What's your scoreline and first goal scorer?
It's a tough one, this, isn't it? A tough call. My heart kind of will always go with England. My head says it's going to be a difficult contest. A little bit of worry there. But yeah, just to go with a prediction, Jay, I think I'll go with England to sneak it and get through. Lift the nation. We need it at the moment, don't we? I'll go for a 1-0, and I'll go for Kane to get that. I'll go for Kane to get on the score sheet. You watched that, probably 4-all or something like drama everywhere, but I'll go for the 1-0. Let's take it and run, and let's get to the quarters.
Absolutely. Yourself, Neil?
I'm probably going to go 2-0, and I'm going to go really bizarre on that. I think Maguire will score from a set piece.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad shout at all, is it? And Maguire's obviously dangerous from corners. I'll go 0-0 England to win on penalties.
Jesus, I wouldn't be alive. I bought a new TV. I'm not swapping televisions because I don't want to jinx it. So the new TV's sitting in the dining room, and I won't put it up. I'm going to watch with the old one. Yeah,
you may as well. If we win, it's all because of
No, I've got to stick with the old one then.
Yeah, no, that's what we mean. If we win, it's because you've sat there with your old TV, putting in a good shift.
Exactly.
No chance of seeing you at M&S if it goes to penalties. Then you want to be in the house to watch it.
0-0 and goes to penalties. I think I might have a stroke. I don't think I'll make it. I think they'll be carrying me out draped in the flag.
Let's hope not. Right, we've got to talk about yesterday's games. It was probably the best day of Euro 2020 action. We do have a guest to bring in as well to talk about the games, especially. So we'll bring in John. John, how you doing, mate?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Great.
Obviously, a brilliant day of action. I think you yourself have actually been to a couple of the games as well. So I think we'll start off with the first game. Obviously, Spain 5, Croatia 3 after extra time. A hectic game, to say the least. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I think both countries maybe are slightly, I don't know if past their best is the right way of putting it, but I think you know what I mean. With Croatia, certainly are a team that are not quite at the levels they were at 3 years ago. Obviously, Mandzukic is retired. Rakitic, I think, is also retired. Modric is, 3 years older, obviously. I mean, he controlled things very much at the World Cup, especially against England. He wasn't quite able to have that control against Spain yesterday. Spain is more of a country in transition rather than one that's necessarily past it. But I think the Spanish were quite impressive yesterday. Okay, they, if we forget the howler from the keeper, which, the Spanish goal, the cameras went to De Gea a few times on the bench, but that's probably for a different podcast to talk about. But if you forget that howler and the 5 minutes of insanity at the end of the sort of 90 minutes of normal time, Spain dominated. I think another thing that impressed me about Spain was having then got the mental strength to recuperate, having had that jolt at the end of 90 minutes. I mean, you're thinking at 3-3 and there's a chance for Croatia, and the keeper, to be fair, also mentally very strong, recovered really well from that howler by pulling off a couple of really good saves, including crucially one at the beginning of extra time, which I think basically won Spain the game. I think the other thing that impressed me about Spain was, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but their ability to control and keep the ball and play out from the back. I mean, I was having heart attacks and I wasn't really supporting Spain the way they were bringing the ball out, but they managed to do it so well and killed it off once they were 5-3 up, which they should have done really when they were 3-1 up. But yeah, I thought they were very impressive after what was probably a lackluster group display from them largely.
Yeah, they did well. I think there's a lot of character shown to pick themselves back up after that late goal and dominate extra time as well, really. But Alan, I'm not sure if you managed to catch the game, but if you did, were you impressed with either team? Obviously, Spain 2 games in a row now where they've scored 5 goals. That's definitely not the case for England at all. So, should they come up against, are they a threat to that side of the draw to make the final? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it was a good win, wasn't it, yesterday? Like John said, we got a bounce back, haven't they, they went a bit of a shambles of a goal, wasn't it, was it Sim on the keeper? Just lacked concentration, did he? I think his brain was already a few seconds ahead of when the ball was coming to him, what he was going to do, knock it to the defender. And so that was a good start and for the Croatian lads. And then, like you say, Spain had to find character, resilience, mental strength to get back into the game, which they did. Managed to turn it back on its head, got to 3-1 up, and then Croatia found a little bit of impetus, all or nothing, got it back to 3-3, took it into extra time, and like you say, the Spanish lads managed to get themselves over the line and win 5-3 in the end. So yeah, it was a decent contest, a good scrap. But you're right, Jay. Just got to be careful with conceding those goals. It's all well and good scoring goals and being in form at one end of the pitch, but you don't want to be letting them in and giving silly, weak, daft goals away at the other. So that's one thing that might find the Spanish out if they go any further. Obviously, they've got into the quarterfinals now, so they can't afford any more lapses and. They're going to be in for a decent test, aren't they, in the next group, in the next game, in the next stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll end on you, Neil, on this game anyway. Obviously, Spain through to the next round, but they are on a half of the draw that has Belgium and Italy in it. So, is there any chance of them getting to the final on what you've seen? Because personally, I've not been too impressed by them so far.
Well, I fancy Italy from that side of the draw. I think they've been the most impressive side. In that side, they do look, we know the Italians always will be good at the back. They look really good at the back. They're really hungry. They look really, really hungry. They work so hard to get the ball back if and when they do lose it. I think Belgium, I don't know what the situation with De Bruyne is and his injury and Hazard, and I think that would be a major problem for them. They sort of flattered to deceive Belgium to me. Their back three just they don't look solid enough to keep out like in Italy or Spain to me. But I fancy Italy. I think Spain. Italy will win. Italy will win through on that side of the draw to me, and I don't really see much danger from Spain to them. The way Spain, yes, they keep the ball, but God, they conceded three goals. I know they can score a lot, but it was a bizarre game yesterday. It was crazy to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, attacking well but defending poorly, which is completely the opposite to England, isn't it? We're defending very well and attacking very poorly. But John, I know you don't have long, so we'll come to you first. Probably the biggest game or the biggest story yesterday came from the France-Switzerland game. Obviously, France were by far the favourites coming into this tournament, especially when Portugal disappointed in the group stage. But resilience from the Swiss, paid dividends, and they ended up winning on penalties. So, what were your thoughts on the game? I know you got something to say about Mbappe as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, I have. I'll squeeze that in for sure. But generally, just to begin a sort of a more broader point, big shock. I probably, like many others, I saw this as being France as being hot favourites for the title, and then the rest basically is how I saw it. And the rest being England, Belgium, Italy, Spain, Germany, etc. But yeah, I saw France in terms of the talent on paper as being the runaway favourites. I think Deschamps will obviously be facing the wrath of the French media today, and understandably so. I know they're world champions, and that's fine. I'm not suggesting that he's going to lose his job, but with all that talent at his disposal, the decision to bring in Benzema, and Benzema, to be fair, has had a reasonable tournament. He scored yesterday, for example. But the thing I wanted to highlight about Mbappe is I've been fortunate enough to see 3 matches at this tournament, and I want to pick up as well just very quickly on something that Neil said about Hazard and De Bruyne. I was at the game Belgium-Portugal on Sunday, and I was really looking forward to seeing Hazard again, having seen him 3 years ago in the flesh destroy Brazil, basically, and carry Belgium almost single-handedly to the semi-finals. But the Hazard I saw on Sunday was very different. Anyway, I've got sidetracked a bit. Mbappe. So I also saw France against Hungary last Saturday or 9-10 days ago, whenever it was, and fairly anonymous. So I thought I'd pay a bit more attention to him against Portugal, a game I also was lucky enough to see. And I was watching him during the warm-up, and there was a group of 4 or 5 players, including Varane, of course, who United have been linked to. But it was one of those warm-ups where there was a cone and you had to sort of trot 10 or 20 meters and then do a quick burst of speed and then trot back 10 or 20 meters. And Varane, Griezmann, Benzema, they all did it professionally, as you do. I mean, this is 20 minutes before a huge game that France really couldn't afford to lose against Portugal. And Mbappe was the one member of the group who just didn't bother. He would just trot. He just trotted all the way around. Every time you saw Griezmann go for it and then trot back, and then Varane go for it. Every time it was Mbappe. And I thought, wow, that's a bit of a lackadaisical attitude to have before 20 minutes before such a huge game for your country, having had a fairly lackluster start of the tournament. And then, of course, we saw what happened last night. I didn't think he pulled up any trees. I don't really cite his attitude as a reason for missing that penalty. But finishing my comment on a kind of Man United slants, if you like, if it was a dream ticket and it was Haaland or Mbappe, Haaland for me every day of the week.
Big shout from you, John. I'm not sure what time you've got to leave, but if it's before we get back round to you, it's been brilliant to have you on. And make sure you check out John's book as well. Even the defeats, I believe it's called. Check it out. It's a good read. But Alan, France out, probably the tournament favourites. What does this mean for England? Getting to a final there's obviously still Italy and Belgium in that half of the draw, which are incredible teams. But how much confidence does this give you? And then building on that, how disappointed were you with France, or how impressed were you with the Swiss?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest shock so far, hasn't it? In the Euros, the French going out last night. I think the bookmakers prior to that game would probably have them priced up ridiculously heavy favourites. Probably heavily odds on. But you get found out. I didn't think the French started very well. The first half, especially, I thought they were quite poor. I was listening to Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira and Gary Neville on ITV, being particularly critical of them, saying that they looked all over the place. The defending for the goal was poor. To go behind 1-0. And then there was a real critical moment, wasn't there, after about 55 minutes where the Swiss got a penalty, which it was, wasn't it? It was a definite penalty. The lad's gone. He's trying to turn back inside. The French lad slid in, brought him down in the box. And I thought, well, if this goes in, this could be curtains, because I just couldn't see the French getting back into it. I think it was Rodriguez. He missed it. And then that critical moment sparked the French into life, didn't it? And then within 5, 10, 15 minutes, they got it back to 2-1. Benzema, different class, fantastic goal. Great bit of play for the second one. And then Paul Pogba, which we know he's capable of, pulled out an absolute worldie, went and stuck a 25-30 yarder in the top corner. And then you're thinking, no, that's it now, it's all over. So absolutely real credit to the Swiss lads to keep going. I know it's never give up and that sort of stuff, but a great header made it 3-2, and then a brilliant bit of skill on the edge of the box. I think it was Gavranovic scored, and it took it to extra time, 3-3. I couldn't believe it, and the Swiss looked to be getting more and more confident. They seem to be playing the better football. Xhaka all of a sudden, he was like spraying balls all over the place, wasn't he? Unbelievable. So it went to the drama of the penalty shootout. I thought it was Milan United versus Villarreal over again. Very tense, but some really fantastic penalties, some good pens. And as we know, there's always going to be a villain sooner or later. And on this occasion, it was Mbappe who couldn't slot it home. And I think the Swiss were surprised. I think the goalkeeper didn't realise that they'd won it. And it took about 20, 30 seconds to realise, yeah, we're through, we've done it, we've cracked it. And they all ran off to celebrate with the supporters. So as you say, Jay, an absolutely massive shock from a confidence perspective around the other teams in the Euros now. Yeah, it gives you a massive boost, doesn't it? Because I think France were favourites to win it, weren't they? About 4-1, 7-2, and that's it. Departed. See you later. All the best.
Absolutely, a massive moment for everyone in Switzerland. I'll come to you just to finish us off, Neil. Obviously, disappointment for France. What did you think about their performance? And then I'll raise a question that was sort of brought up here. Obviously, we've not seen the top teams blow teams aside, really, other than Spain's 5-0 victory in the group stage. Do you think it's been disappointing from the big nations, or do you think we're seeing an improvement from the smaller nations now to a point where the gap in quality is closing? Well,
that message you've got on the screen, it does look like the gap has closed between all the sides. I mean, I saw France yesterday at 6-1. Switzerland, sorry, they were 6-1 to win the game, 4-1 to win the game at any time, which was just, in a 2-horse race, you're thinking they've got to be worth a fiver. I mean, I didn't take the bet. I mean, France, it was a brilliant game. I mean, the resolve of the Swiss side was absolutely spectacular. And like Alan said, Granit Xhaka was just unbelievable. I was absolutely gobsmacked with his performance. And as usual, we get linked with the centre half, and he doesn't actually do very well. Varane, I mean, their defence was all over the place. They couldn't be. It was just a magnificent game, and to me, it showed. I think it's one of the best games of football I think I've ever seen in terms of drama. It was absolutely fantastic game of football, and I'm really pleased for the Swiss. I think their next game might be a bit after the Lord Mayor's show. I think they'll be absolutely mentally ruined after a game like that. I mean, I know they've got like a 5 or 6 day break now, haven't they, till the next game, but I think they'll need it to try and mentally recover from that game. But it was just brilliant game of football.
Absolutely. We treated yesterday, weren't we? I can't personally see the same happening again. But just to round us off then for the episode, I'll come to each of you. Now that France are out, we've also had Netherlands out as well, who were sort of underdogs going into the tournament. Some big names have exited. Who now are you thinking will win the tournament? Obviously, if we cast aside England, because hopefully that's everyone's answers. Other than England, who now is the favourites with France gone? I'll come to you first, Alan.
Yeah, I think as you say, Jay, aside from the England lads, I think that's going to be a massive tie, this Belgium-Italy one, isn't it? Whoever can navigate that one, I think is probably going to be possibly the favourites. Been very impressed with the Italians so far, albeit they weren't overly impressive the other night, but they still managed to get the job done and get it over the line against the Austrians. They didn't play particularly well. But again, had to go to extra time to steal their place into the quarterfinals. But they look decent. They got some exciting players. They work hard. They seem to have a good unit. Mancini seems to be doing really well with them. I think they broke a record the other night. Was it something like 31 games unbeaten? So they're in the midst of a really good run and a really good spell. So I would suggest that out of that tie. It'd probably be the favourites. So I think I'm going to echo Neil. I think Neil fancied the Italians as well. So I think I'll probably lump with them if I was going to have a little punt or a little bet.
Yes, it's definitely a good shout. John, I'll come to you. Who are your favourites now with France exiting?
I mean, Alan's really said it perfectly. I mean, I think it's really the winner of Belgium, Italy will be the favourites. As much as I was saying how good Spain were in spells yesterday, I think spells is not quite good enough necessarily to beat those two. I'm going to go with Belgium, but I actually think Belgium are slightly past their best, and I think with Hazard and De Bruyne, they aren't quite at the level they were at 2018, but they might not have to be. And one player, of course, that is probably better than ever is Lukaku. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Belgium, but, if Italy won, it wouldn't surprise me. And so the winner of that match for me wins the tournament, because on the other side, we've got the forever mentally fragile England, and I know we've already, spoken about them plenty early on in the show, so I won't dwell on that too much. And I just, a bad Germany kind of can get to finals. We've seen that before, but I'm not sure that this Germany is good enough to win the whole tournament. So, yeah, I'll go Belgium. I mean, I've got to go with someone, so I'll go Belgium. Yeah,
fair enough. Neil, I'll come to you finally. I know you're a big fan of the Italians. Do you think now that they can really go all the way?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've backed Italy to get to the final. You could have an each way bet at the start, and I backed them a couple of months ago when they're on this crazy run. They're a ridiculous price to do as well as they have, and I think they've shown. I mean, they've got a fantastic goalkeeper. His record's absolutely bonkers in it. I think I read something the other day. He hasn't conceded 2 goals ever when he's played for Italy, which someone could check that. The Twitter world will probably crush me, but I'm sure I read that the other day. They've got an amazing goalkeeper. They've got a great spine at the side. They've got some real hunger to try, and Mancini's done a fantastic job with this Italian side. And that to me, that would be a great final. That would be a great finalist against the Italians. It'd be a magnificent atmosphere and a real top occasion. But I think the Italians are clearly the best side in that side of the draw.
Yeah, I can't help but agree with you. I think the most impressed I've been by a team is Italy, especially. I've been quite disappointed with Belgium so far. They've got through their group easy enough, but that's to be expected. And I wasn't overly impressed with them against Portugal, and this isn't even an amazing Portugal team anymore by the looks of it. So I can't look past Italy. But I will throw it out there. I think there is it's not completely unthinkable that Denmark do very well in this tournament. I think they've got a very favourable game in the next round, and it's a very talented group of players. But they're spurred on by this sort of it seems like an unbreakable bond they've got now. They've been through an absolute emotional roller coaster this tournament, and I think they've come out the other side of it with nothing but motivation and desire. We saw that against Wales. No one expected them to smash 4 past Wales, to completely outclass them. I don't think Wales ever really in the game. And I think should they meet England in the semi-final, I think it wouldn't be a foregone conclusion that England get through. So, they get through that, they get into a final, anything can happen in a final. I think there's definitely been stranger things. I don't think Denmark will win it by any chance, but I'd definitely say they're one to keep an eye out for, just because of everything they've been through and how they've come out of it the other side. But, I'll leave the floor open for any of you guys to add anything before we end, but I think that's all from me. Everyone all good?
Yeah.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
I think that, Jay, as well, like the home advantage again. I'm not too sure how it operates, but England are doing all right at the moment, aren't they? The kind of the way the fixtures are panning out, they're kind of keeping to Wembley sort of thing. So I don't know. Do they? If they go
to Rome.
They go to Rome. Yeah.
Germans. Yeah. If they beat the Germans, they play Sweden or Ukraine in Rome.
Rome, right? Okay, yeah. And then is it Wembley?
Yeah. Then it's back to Wembley.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing to factor in as well. Obviously, England haven't travelled; they've not been unsettled at all. They've got a lot of rest in the legs, and I don't think the same. Well, Germany have played a lot of their games at home, but they've still got to travel to England, etc. So it'd definitely be something to keep an eye on. But that's just about all from us, I think. So thank you to you guys on the panel for joining me. It's been a brilliant show. I've really enjoyed it. Massive thank you to everyone who's tuned in as well, and contributed with comments as well. Be sure to let us know who your tournament favourites are as well now that France are out. The mighty have fallen, I suppose you could say. Check all these guys out on Twitter as well. Obviously, the handles are in the name, and then check out John's book, which is in his name as well. But without any further ado, we will be back, I believe, tomorrow for another one of these shows. So be sure to tune in. I think Benny's hosting it. So it should be a good episode. But yeah, until then, we'll see you later.
Cheers, guys.